Welcome to RealGM Radio. It's another round of NBA tiers. Let's jump in. All right, Matt Moore is here. You know what it means. It's another round of NBA tiers, Matt. It's the first edition of these since the NBA trade deadline. Let's jump right in. Where do you want to start?
Oh, let's start at the top. We're doing championships, level tiers. Can you win the championship? That's the tiers that we're going through today. I'm just going over and making sure regular championship contenders. How likely are you to win the NBA championship this season? And we will start at the top with one of these teams will win the title.
Oh,
two teams. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. One of those teams is going to win the NBA title. I am confident in saying already, we know that the NBA championship will not be one of 28 teams. It's going to be either the Oklahoma City Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs.
I want to talk about these teams, obviously, but the two things that stood out to me right away here is that no Eastern Conference team is in this list, which says a lot about the Eastern Conference right now. And also, I think there's another, glaring omission that we could talk about here in a second. But look, the Thunder, not a surprise that they're in this tier. The Spurs, the way that they've played, I think deserve to be in this tier. You have no argument for me at all with that. They have one of the best defenses in the league right now. They're third in defensive rating.
They keep getting better.
And only getting better. They are trending upwards in basically every statistical category. They have a ton of signature wins. Like if this was college football playoff style, committee, they would be number one on all the signature wins list. Mostly just because they keep being the Thunder, but there's a bunch of other signature wins on that list too. And Victor Wembanyama has been sensational.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they really do have the package, and there are like things in here that you can kind of point to as far as what's going to trip them up. If you go and you look at things like, okay, how do they win these games? And it's really, okay, they don't turn the ball over and they generate a lot of free throws. They're not that great at shooting the ball. They're good at defending you shooting the ball, fifth in EFG. But, and they have a really good, this shot profile is such a big deal for them. Like San Antonio allows the 11th fewest threes, so they just don't let you take a lot of those, and they defend at a really high level. But they are 20th in opponent 3-point percentage, which the percentages of the wonks will tell you is a lot more luck based. But they're third in rim protection and fourth in rim frequency. They make you take a lot of mid-range shots. However, in the playoffs, you do tend to find that you're going to run into teams that have tough shot makers. So there'll probably be some of that. This is their first playoff run. Stephon Castle's never played a playoff game. Victor Wembanyama's never played a playoff game. Dylan Harper's never played a playoff game. De'Aaron Fox has played a few. Not a lot, but a few. Devin Vassell's played, I think, a couple. I think he was on the 19 team, maybe not. Maybe those guys, but maybe both Vassell and Keldon have never been in the playoffs. They do not have a lot of playoff veterans. That's a problem. They have Harrison Barnes, and that's pretty much it.
Luke Cornett.
Mitch Johnson, first-time head coach. So, there's inexperience, and these teams, this is all very, very difficult. But their profile just simply stands out that they meet every threshold for me, and they are good enough. They could beat OKC. San Antonio's up there.
I don't know what to do with the experience thing, because on one hand, you have the Thunder last year, who were the inexperienced team. Right. But they made runs prior to last year, but they were still sort of the inexperienced team that had never done it before. Even that team had more experience than the Spurs team. And I even hesitate to be because of that Thunder team, we should no longer count inexperience as a factor, right? So I have trouble with what to do. On the other hand, Victor Wembanyama, and you're just that guy might just be good enough to the point where, and this roster is deep. I don't want to make this all just Victor Wembanyama. This roster is really good. Keldon Johnson's a legit 6th Man of the Year candidate. De'Aaron Fox is a bona fide star player, and he has been tremendously impactful on this team. The difference between before De'Aaron Fox and after De'Aaron Fox in terms of the Spurs being a serious basketball team as opposed to just throw Victor Wembanyama out there and let's just see what we can do with this thing is very different. It is a stark, I think, contrast. We talk a lot about what Victor Wembanyama means for them defensively. This season, they've been really good defensively, even without Victor Wembanyama on the court. They're obviously incredible when he's on the court too, right? So they go from elite with Wemby on the court to merely good to very good when Wemby's off the court. The bigger on-off court differential is on offense. The Spurs on offense with Victor Wembanyama on the court would have the fourth best offense in the league. 117.7 would be their offensive rating. That's tied with Oklahoma City for the fourth best offensive rating in the league. When Wemby's off the court, they fall into a bottom 10 type of offensive rating. So Wemby's actually more important in terms of on-off stuff to their offense than it is their defense. Now, that's a question that I have because Wemby does not average a lot of minutes. He does not play a lot. He's only averaging 29 minutes per game right now. I think my big question in terms of whether or not this team can make and then ultimately win the championship is how many more minutes can Wemby average in the postseason, if at all?
Well, I don't go to the minutes thing. I go to you in the playoffs. Guys actually do this thing where they read the scouting report, which is a refreshing change of pace. Mm-hmm. And so teams are going to build out like a whole 3-level strategy of how they're going to defend Victor Wembanyama. It's going to be, hey, we're going to contest him on the catch. We're going to push him out as far as possible. Use your size. Then it's going to be, these are the things that you need to watch out for. Then it's going to be, we're going to bring help from this side because he doesn't have as good of a handle from this hand, or he has a hard time recognizing this peripheral vision from this side. They're going to run a lot of complicated concepts to combat him. Like you become the focal point. And some teams, this is probably like if De'Aaron Fox has a monster run, then that's how you compensate. It's just like, hey, the other guys capitalize. But I'm not going to be surprised if Victor struggles in his first playoff run, even if the Spurs advance to the finals or win it, just because they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Victor, and there are enough holes in his game to punish him in those regards.
So there's more stuff that I want to talk about in terms of the teams that I think should be in this tier, but team, not singular, not plural. But that's a good way to jump into your next tier here.
Okay. Teams that can make the finals. Can make the finals. They're not going to win it. The Denver Nuggets, the Detroit Pistons, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the New York Celtics, New York Knicks, and the Boston Celtics. I do want to state that that the reason that this is kind of changed, and if I just did basketball side stuff, because I know that's where your argument's going to come in on, that's where you prefer to kind of focus, then sure, there'd be more teams at the top. But I have become very focused on the history of NBA champions, which tell a very specific story. And if you follow me on Twitter at HP Basketball, you know that every week I post a title track photo, the image that shows there's 3 categories. Top 3 seed, because only 2 teams in NBA history, going back to the very beginning of the league, have won outside of a top 3 seed. A 4.0 SRS, only 3 teams have ever won with a less than 3 SRS, which is Basketball Reference's simple rating system. It's point diff versus strength of schedule. How good were you and how good were the opponents you played? That's a very simple stat. It's a very illustrative one because, again, only 3 teams have ever done it, and they all did it with more than a 3.0. Nobody's done it in the last 30 years with below a 3.0. And then the 40-20 rule, which you can actually look up on Wikipedia. It's got its own Wikipedia page for me to send people to. 40 wins before 20 losses. 91% of all NBA champions since 1980 have crossed 40 wins before 20 losses. In the last 30 years, there have only been 4 teams that have not crossed 40-20 and won the title. And Wes, because I've figured out how to do this now, of those 3 categories, 28 of the last 29 NBA champions crossed at least 2 of those categories. You have to get 2 of the 3. So guess what? That's why OKC and San Antonio are up there, because a lot of these teams, Denver's got 20 losses already. New York hit 20 losses last night. Boston's can hit 20 losses here coming up. Minnesota's got 20 losses. Cleveland's got 20 losses. So this really just kind of leaves Detroit, which we can talk about.
The team I actually took issue with here was the Denver Nuggets. I'm a little surprised that they're not in your top tier. Now I hear you on all the rules and the criteria and all that stuff. The Nuggets, though, I do wonder how they qualify here because they've had so many injuries this season. And, they're 34-20 right now. Their point differential is pretty good, 0.4, 0.0, just in raw point differential. Jokic has missed a ton of time. Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon obviously missed a ton of time. Christian Brown, I don't know how much that actually matters in the big scheme of things, but also missed a bunch of time. Like, they've got a lot of injuries, but then at the same time, you could say the same thing for OKC and San Antonio, right? Where San Antonio was without Victor Wembanyama for a really long time. The Thunder were without Jalen Williams for a long time. Now they're without SGA, and a bunch of other guys have been in and out of the lineup now. Now, Denver is starting to get healthier while the Thunder are starting to get unhealthier. So I do wonder by, 15 games from now, are their records a little bit closer than they are now? But I do wonder for a team like the Nuggets, who I think we would all agree at their best is right there, qualitatively at least, with the Thunder and the Spurs. Why? Like, that seems like a team that maybe we should be overlooking when it comes to some of these criteria that you're talking about.
So this is a team obviously I cover very closely over at Locked On Nuggets. I'm here in Denver. I see them every night. And they are absolutely a title-worthy team. When fully healthy, they had the number 2 defense in the league, and that was like a little high, right? If you adjust for 3-point luck, though, they only fall to 5th. They were still an elite defense. Basically, when Aaron Gordon is out there, they are able to cover up for Nikola Jokic.
And I think that's probably the biggest X factor right now, maybe in the league, is Aaron Gordon's health.
Yep. The problem with a lot of this is if you're like, well, yeah, but they're the exception to all these rules because they had so many injuries, is you assume that no other team in NBA history has ever had to deal with these kind of things. Like, that's the thing is like this history that when we look at these historical markers, it factors these things in. There's a couple of elements here. One, they survived the injury to Jokic by going 10-6. They were without 4 starters for most of the month of January. And what an incredible job that they did. And I'm not being facetious or patronizing. Like, it really was legitimately awesome that the young guy stepped up. The problem is that when you do that, it takes something out of everybody else. Jamal Murray had to play 38 minutes a night. Peyton Watson played way more minutes than he's used to. He's out with a hamstring injury. Tim Hardaway Jr., an aging vet, had to take a lot of hits going over screens and play out of position a lot. Bruce Brown had to play out of position a lot. So all that wears on you. Then there's just this. They're probably not going to wind up with the 2 seed. There's a chance, but they're probably not going to. And one of the reasons they're not going to is their home record is poor. They have a bad home record. And since their incredible start when they were 10-2 and they looked like I thought they were the best team in the league, they basically just been playing like 500 ball. Like a little bit over 500. Pretty good. And it's like, well, yeah, because of all the injuries. Everyone has injuries. You have to be able to prove to me that you are above the adversity that comes your way. And like they did prove it because they went 10-6 without Joker. But also he's come back and they're 1-4. And he doesn't look right. And AG, I don't know if he's going to come back. Not come back. I don't know if he comes back and stays back. He might come back and then get hurt again. This has been one of those years where it's just been a lot of Nuggets fans are just like, it's just not our year, man. We just are never going to get over the injury stuff. And that sometimes happens. The other part of this, Wes, actually is a funny little thing, which is I'm saying that New York, Minnesota, or that New York and Cleveland can't win the title. But if Denver faces them in the finals, Denver loses to Cleveland or New York. They can't match up with them. It's just a bad matchup for Denver. They've had problems with New York the last 2 seasons. They've had problems with Cleveland the last 2 seasons. They do not match up well with those teams. And if you're like, yeah, but the Nuggets are their level, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, they do not match up well with those teams. I think they lose. It would be very ironic if the Nuggets beat the Thunder, made the finals, and then lost to the Knicks. But I could see it happening.
You should get like half a trophy if that happens. If you're the Nuggets, I don't know. No, these are interesting points on the Nuggets. And I do think there is something to be said about it just not being their year, right? Where it's all the injuries, it's all these things now. You're right. All these teams deal with injuries. You can look in the past and these metrics and all these things. And, of course, injuries to what's probably going to end up being one of the top 10 players of all time. And Nikola Jokic.
They went 10-6 when he was out.
Exactly. But they did play well in his time off. I don't know. you make logical arguments, but they still have Jokic, and I still think that they're capable of winning any of these series. We'll see what happens. Like I said, to me, the Aaron Gordon health factor is the biggest thing. If he's not healthy, I don't think they have a chance. Obviously, if Jokic isn't healthy, they don't have a chance. But of the supporting players, like I really think they need Aaron Gordon because of his specialization defensively is so important. I don't want to talk about all these teams. I do want to talk about Cleveland, though, because I don't remember the last time we did tiers or where we had them, but I can't imagine that the Cavs were very high. They have to be in this tier. I 100% agree with you here. They're back up to 5th in offensive rating. They're 1st in offensive rating over the last 15 games. Obviously, that's even before the James Harden acquisition. Since acquiring James Harden, little bit of a honeymoon phase, it seems like right now, but it's working well. They beat the Nuggets the other night. Their defensive rating is back to flirting with top 10. Since panic was setting in Cleveland earlier in the year, they have leveled off. They've gotten some guys back. Sam Merrill's back. Jalen Tyson's been really good for them. Guys are starting to figure out what their roles are. And now having a guy like James Harden next to Donovan Mitchell, I do think right now that the Cavs' best basketball is ahead of them. Now we'll see what that means for the playoffs and the postseason because we know about James Harden's warts at that point. But in terms of being able to make the finals, I think the Cavs have to be in this tier, and they're maybe the most surprising addition back into this sort of area right now.
Jalen Tyson is such a huge, huge story to me because being able to play him in so many versatile spots in 763 minutes, Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Tyson have a 112.5 defensive rating together. So the whole problem was you can't cover for Donovan defensively with Garland. And it's like, oh, can you cover for him with Harden? Probably a little bit easier. And Jalen Tyson does so much for them as a corner shooter, as a spot up weapon, as an athletic guy. He has been, I was very low on him when the first month or so. I was like, I do not get the hype with this guy. Like this Cavs loved him and I just do not see it. And since then I've been like, oh, okay, I get it now. My bad. Sorry. You're right. It really does work and it covers up for a lot. They've done this without Evan Mobley. And Mobley I has really not had a good season. He's had a downturn season and he's got to stop having these. I'm really tired of it being Evan Mobley has a great season. Evan Mobley gets a little bit worse. Evan Mobley is even better than he was the season prior to last year. He gets a little bit worse. Like it's this real zigzag thing with an upward curve, but he's got to level off in terms of his development. Most development isn't linear, but it's too erratic with Evan. But if Mobley's able to get back and kind of turn his season around, and especially if he clicks with Harden, which I think is probable, then you really got something going here. The lob combination with Harden and Allen makes it very difficult for you to overload on Donovan Mitchell. I like what they're getting from the bench now. I actually think that Thomas Bryant has given them great minutes and great energy. I think he's been terrific. Dean Wade is still there. I think that I heard that Dean Wade kind of was looking for a new home, but he's still there and is a versatile forward who can shoot. I have questions about Atkinson in the playoffs because he just adores Sam Merrill. Just find yourself someone who loves you the way Kenny Atkinson loves Sam Merrill. But if they can figure out how to cover for for Mitchell, Harden, Merrill, and the numbers say they can. I don't buy it, but the numbers say they can. Yeah, there's no one with the Pistons. It's okay. If they face the Pistons, can the Pistons actually match up with firepower? Maybe not. If they match up with the Knicks, can the Knicks get enough stops against this offense? Probably not. If they match up, I'm thinking Boston, it's going to be, can the Celtics handle the interior presence of the Cavaliers? Probably not. Well, they have matchup advantages over everybody else in the Eastern Conference. They are absolutely, I think, a serious finals contender.
Like I said, I agree with you. If I were going to push back on anything, it's do they match up against all these teams? On paper, yes. They matched up against these teams on paper last year and the year before that. And the problem with Cleveland always is, what was the Jared Allen thing that he said? I wasn't expecting the lights to be that bright. Yeah. There tends to be some of that. Last year, the Garland injury was a big factor.
Well, and just I think even less than the Garland thing. If we just look back at last year, aren't the Pacers just they were
better than we all thought?
Aren't they just like a comet though?
Yeah.
This team that was a 5 seed, or I think a 4 seed, and just turned into a clutch time juggernaut that no one could stop. I don't think that they were a fluke, because I think that when you put like Tyrese Halliburton is that good, Pascal Siakam is that good, Rick Carlisle is that good. They put all the pieces together, but a lot of things also just fell into place for them. And so with Cleveland, the years prior, I think JB had a really hard time putting the right lineups out there. And I think Atkinson had the same problem in that series. I blamed him a lot for how that series went. But I do think we do kind of have to be like, hey, if they just don't run into a comet, don't they probably make the finals? And the answer is probably yes.
Well, one of the things I really like about what I've seen so far with the Donovan Mitchell, James Harden stuff, and granted, it's only been 2 games, I think, and there's a lot more basketball left to be played. I do like that Kenny Atkinson right now has decided, okay, when Harden is on the court, so is Jared Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And just leaning right into our best, most natural pick and roll lob threat with our best, most natural pick and roll passer, putting those two guys on the court is a really easy way to get Harden going so that he's comfortable, and also a really easy way to get Jared Allen going, especially with Evan Mobley out. We're going to need production from everywhere we can. And then you've got Donovan Mitchell kind of just playing in space with these other lineups with Mobley out, where Donovan Mitchell can just do Donovan Mitchell things. He's probably going to end up on MVP ballots again for the second straight year. So I do like that they're doing that. And what Jalen Tyson has been giving them right now is sort of what they were hoping DeAndre Hunter was going to give them last year, and then didn't really give them last year or this year. And clearing Hunter out and making room for Jalen Tyson, his spot in the rotation is in Sharpie. We know exactly what he's going to be playing. He's just this do-everything kind of guy that they just didn't really have over the last couple of years. And I think those are the kind of connective pieces that I thought this team had been looking for and missing, and they finally have it with Jalen Tyson. So, like I said, I think they have to be in this tier. I have no disagreement with you at all. With Cleveland, it's always been this playoff bugaboo for them. There's been reasons, obviously. With James Harden, it's the same story with him. Now that Harden and Cleveland are together, I'm very interested to see if like 2 wrongs can make a right with this point with the Cavs, and maybe they can make the finals, but we'll see. What's your next tier? Today's episode of RealGM Radio is brought to you by Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. It's America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you can cash in. You can choose from basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, UFC, and more. Plus, they've got features like early payouts and flex play, so you've got options while the games are still happening. I downloaded the app and I was surprised by how easy it was to get started. It took just a couple of minutes to build my first lineup. I've been making NBA lineups around players that I already follow, picking more or less on points and assists, and it honestly makes every possession way more fun to watch. I also love the social feature where you can see what other people are playing and copy lineups with one click. It's a cool way to learn and build better picks, and it's available in all 50 states. So it's easy for just about anyone to jump in. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
Well, I want to hit you real quickly on Detroit, because I almost put Detroit a tier down, which is insulting to them because they're the #1 seed in the East. They are on pace for 40-20. They have this monstrously elite defense. I feel like they're going to be a second round out. I just feel like they're going to hit a team that has more firepower, and they're going to wind up falling a little bit short, because this was a team that made the leap last year and probably should have beaten the Knicks. I think they played better than them in that series. But this year, everything has kind of gone right for them, and I get real nervous about those kind of teams with regards to the peak early things. There's a lot of holes in them offensively. I like a lot of the moves that they made, but they are missing the punch that Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., just as far as like, hey, we're, when in doubt, we're just going to create pick and roll and kick it to shooters who are going to knock down threes. They really are missing that component. I feel like Detroit has a pretty concerning playoff profile based off of what the expectations are going to be for them. Am I off?
Well, right now you mentioned the second round out, right? They would most likely, if this was the playoff bracket, play Cleveland in the second round. They could absolutely lose to Cleveland in the second round. So I could see them being a second round out. You and I talk all the time on Locked on NBA Daily. Tend to be higher on Detroit than you are, but I do share. I hear your concerns and I share them. The biggest issue for me is yes, they don't have the Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway thing. They replaced 2 good 3-point shooters with 1 in Duncan Robinson. Duncan's been very good for them this year, but to your point, you go from 2 to 1, and that's a problem. They just don't have that other scorer, right? And it's why everybody on their trade machines was saying Larry Markkinen, Michael Porter Jr. Can the Pistons go get one of these guys? And now you've got Trajan Langdon coming out after the deadline saying, yeah, we kind of just want to see what these playoffs are all about.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. And I don't love that kind of talk from a number 1 seed in the East. Just as a basketball purist, it's a lot of just happy to be here type of feelings from them. And I'm like, don't just be happy to be here. Like, be more than here. Like, really.
Okay, in his defense, this is exactly what Sam Presti did.
Yep.
Because everyone said, you should go get a center. Why didn't you get a center? This is a joke. You screwed up, Sam Presti. You didn't go get a center. And then he was like, because my options were bad at the deadline, and I'm just going to wait till the summer and get Isaiah Hartenstein, who's perfect. Perfect. And I'm not going to have to.
It makes total sense from a basketball. I get it from where he's coming from as a job as a general manager. And he did say something also interesting that I felt like didn't get enough, didn't make enough rounds, where he said, yeah, we didn't make a move, or maybe because other teams pulled out, or because it just wasn't. I'm like, wait. What'd you say about those teams pulling out? Did you maybe try to line something up that didn't really work? Now they got Kevin Huerter, so now they have another 3-point shooter, to your point before. So now Duncan Robinson and Kevin Huerter. That's kind of interesting to me, I think. But they didn't make the big splashy move. I think it's the right thing because you still need, and this is one of my biggest X factors in the Eastern Conference, you needed somebody like Asar Thompson to step up and be that wing who can really do stuff next to Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. And right now, Asar Thompson plays way too much like a big because everything he does is at the rim. He's taken 23 pointers total all season. Not made, taken. 20. He does not take threes. Even he's averaging like 2.5 assists per game, but he's not doing it like as an alternative to Cade on the second side of a pick and roll. It's a lot of just dribble handoff,
trigger action.
Kind of, offensive, gets a chaotic offensive rebound and kicks it out to Duncan Robinson or somebody and gets an assist that way. He basically plays like a big man. Yep. He doesn't play like a perimeter player. And the Pistons desperately need somebody to play like a perimeter player who is a natural number 2 next to Cade Cunningham. And that is my biggest concern with the Pistons. I just think that because their defense is clearly the best singular unit in the Eastern Conference, and it's not close, and because Cade and Duren are that good as a pick and roll tandem, I think they have a realistic chance of coming out of the Eastern Conference. And if you're in the finals, I think you have a chance to win the finals, even though I say that sort of like maybe not this year. But I just think that in the East, they're good enough to get through. I like their physicality, and I think that kind of stuff translates in the postseason, as long as they don't get suspended.
It does. I will just say that there's oftentimes this thing of like, well, I like their physicality because it translates. And a lot of teams purposely don't bring physicality because it's regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Like these teams that bring physicality in the regular season, everybody's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, but you don't like Cleveland. We've seen them not bring the phicality in the playoffs. New York, I don't think we're going to accuse them of getting physical in the playoffs. And Boston,
I think OG can, but yeah.
Yeah.
So third tiers absolutely can make the conference finals. These teams can make can make the final 4. The Golden State Warriors, the Charlotte Hornets. Did not think I would say that. And the Philadelphia 76ers. These are only 3 that I think can't make the finals, but they can definitely get to the conference finals.
Okay. This tier is fascinating. It's my favorite tier that you have. I have a question about 2 of these teams. So I'm going to eliminate the third team by talking about them first. The 76ers.
Yep.
Why conference finals but not NBA finals?
Because I think it kind of follows this pattern of, all right, let's say that they wind up in the 4-5. And let's say that you're wrong and Detroit's got a lower floor and they get upset in the 1-8, right? Which I don't think is going to happen, but I think it's, with the inexperience, I think it's a little bit more likely than a traditional, like a team that's built up a lot of equity like the Celtics, right? Last year. Then they're in a second round versus an overmatched opponent, and then they can make a conference finals. But once you get into, I think, there's nothing about Philadelphia you can really point to convince me of just like, yeah, this team can go on a juggernaut run. They can play really good basketball. They can take any team to 7. They can push all these squads. I do not see them being able to win 3 rounds. I think they can win 2. I do not think that they can win 3 rounds of basketball.
To win 3 rounds of basketball in the Eastern Conference, that means they're going to have to beat 2 of Boston or Detroit. I'm sorry, Boston or New York. No, that's not right.
I mean, we don't know what the stand. We just do. We don't know what the standings are going to be yet.
Yeah. But they're going to have to probably beat Detroit, who's got a pretty clear lead for the Eastern Conference, and then one of either Cleveland, Boston, or New York.
Yep.
And that's a lot.
Yep.
So I don't disagree. I don't know what to make of the 76ers. At their best, I think they could beat any team in the Eastern Conference, right? But the question is, can they stay healthy for all of these rounds? Specifically, can Joel Embiid stay healthy? So, now, the Paul George 25-game suspension, does that actually help them? Because it ensures that he's not injured probably for the playoffs?
Yeah, maybe. Probably a little bit. I think...
But he's also not been that important for them.
I do have a question for you. Outside of Tyrese Maxey is awesome, because I will concede that absolutely. I'm a big Tyrese Maxey fan. What is the thing with the Sixers that you're like, they're awesome at this?
Nothing, right? When Embiid is also awesome, then it's those two things. And the metrics still love Joel Embiid. Like, his impact when he's on the floor is still, I mean, it's not what it was when he was an MVP or an MVP candidate, but he's still got this ridiculous outsized impact. And a lot of it is also defensively, even though he's not moving the same way.
Right.
It's gotten a lot better since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but my presence. But my thing is if we're at yeah, but like, Joel Embiid's still really impactful. You're not going to sell me on playoffs, Joel Embiid. Not going to do it.
It's a very fair point. I think ultimately you have him in the right place because we don't really know what to do with them, right? Like, you have a next tier. They're probably better than that next tier. They're not as good as the tier that we were just talking about. So this is probably the right place to have them. You have the Warriors and the Hornets here. One of these teams has no freaking business being in this tier. Can you guess which one I'm thinking about?
Oh, the Golden State Warriors.
Correct.
Yeah. No, I know.
Why the F are they here?
Okay. Here's the thing. If we're going to do, well, what if Joel Embiid's healthy? And if we're going to do, well, what if Denver's healthy? If we're going to give that grace, then we need to give it to the Warriors. And here is the unfortunate reality. Kristaps Porzingis is an incredibly impactful player. He is unbelievably impactful. The difference with him with both Boston and Atlanta is massive. It is massive. He is a rim protecting stretch 5 who can switch, drop, hedge. There is a hyper versatility there. Like, he plays the way that Bam Adebayo should play, plus Bam's passing. And his rim protection is incredible. If you add that to Draymond Green and Steph Curry, and if you add in the components that they have in terms of getting a good series from a couple of guys, Moses Moody, I think, has been playing really well since then. I'm not high on this team. I don't look at this team and go, ooh. But there are numbers under the hood, especially defensively, that you start to get into where you're like, okay, all right, this team could be tough. And I'm just not going to be surprised if the Warriors sneak into a 6 spot because the Suns tail off or something, and then wind up in a matchup that they can exploit. And all of a sudden you're like, the Warriors are back in the conference finals. Steph Curry averaged 35 versus the Nuggets and or Rockets or Spurs, and they're here and they just piece it together like veteran teams do, and then they get their absolute backsides handed to them in the conference finals by a team that is actually legitimate. But I do think that there's more upside here than people realize when you start to look at what they're capable of with Porzingis and Steph. Like, Draymond is at the very end of being viable, but you put him on the floor next to Steph and they still don't know people don't know how to stop it. They don't know how to stop Steph and Draymond. It still works. And if you're going to play your best players the most, I think that they actually have this kind of upside.
I hope and wish that you're right, because very few things make NBA fans happier, including this one, than Steph Curry playing in games that matter. I don't see any world where this is right. I think a key part to what you said was, can they sneak into that 6th seed? Because that's the only way that this works for me. They're right now 3.5 games back of Minnesota for the 6th spot. Not impossible to get there, but it's a pretty far way to go with 20 games left, especially considering that Golden State isn't super healthy right now. And all these games are, there's going to be fewer and fewer games as we go on. So if they end up in the play-in tournament, they have no chance.
Why?
Right? Because then you end up, even if you make it out of the play-in, it's a date with Oklahoma City or San Antonio in the first round.
Again, I'll tell you. Well, no, look, you gotta really think about what the bottom floor here is. Okay, is San Antonio a proven commodity? Do you know what they're going to be in the playoffs?
I don't know that I know what this Warriors team is in the playoffs.
That's well, we know that they're going to have. We know they're going to be experienced, right?
A couple of them, yeah.
The important ones.
True.
A lot of these guys were also there on the 2022 team, even though they didn't play huge roles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Look, I don't like this Warriors team. I think they thought this team was bad with Jimmy Butler, but their numbers were really good with Jimmy. And Porzingis may just never be healthy. He just may continue to be sick and out. And Steph's getting up there, and Draymond's getting a whole lot of ways. Their floor, you're absolutely right. If we did floors for these teams, Wes, the Warriors would miss the playoffs. They could absolutely lose in the play and just not make it. I have seen teams make these kind of runs with these veteran squads before, with a veteran squad with a singular superstar. The other thing I think that you should keep in mind, Houston and San Antonio have a little bit of a math problem. Just a little bit of a math problem. Golden State's sneakily up to 11th in three-point percentage after being really low the rest of the season. They don't allow threes. They make them. They take a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
And defense and win the math game is a really good sound approach if you are a low mistake team.
They're not a low mistake team. They turn the ball over a bleep ton.
That's true.
They don't rebound. And without Jimmy, they don't get to the free throw line. So they become increasingly dependent on the 3-point variance, which that could end up, who knows? Maybe they win a round because of it. But winning 4 games against OKC or San Antonio, despite the experience and all that stuff, just seems like a really, really tough bet for the Warriors.
Oh, if they're in the 8, they're not winning. They might win a game off of OKC. That's it.
Yeah. So that was my biggest thing. I was like, this team might not even make it out of the play-in tournament, and if that's the case, I don't see it making it all the way to the conference finals. Mm-hmm. So I love that the Hornets are in here. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this team, but one of the best starting fives in basketball.
Yep.
Their biggest problem right now is that because of their slow start to the year, they're going to be locked into the play-in tournament here. They're right now 4.5 games back of the 6th seed, which is just a lot of ground to make up, as well as they've been playing. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games. Who knows? Maybe they, I don't know. They've been playing great. But even if they were to make it, they would have to, I think, get into that 7-8 mix in the play-in tournament to really have a chance to make it. But that said, they could make it as the 8th seed, play Detroit in the first round. Mm-hmm. And as much as I love the Pistons, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's impossible for the Hornets, but I would feel better if they were in that 7th spot of making it out. But I like that they're here. Best starting 5 in basketball, one of them, playing better as the season has gone on. They're well coached. Con Knippel looks like a all-star level player right now. If LaMelo could stay bought in the way that he's been bought in, and if they're still getting the production out of their center bullpen that they've been getting, sure, why not?
It's probably going to be Knicks in the 2, but I will offer this up to you as catnip. The Boston Celtics have a real problem with defensive rebounding. Mm-hmm. This team is a monster rebounding. The Boston Celtics have a problem with 3-point variance. The Hornets are a 3-point shooting team. There's a lot of ways that matchup's not great either. If it's Boston If it's Detroit 1, Boston 2, and Charlotte's in the play-in tournament in the 7-8, I'm going to feel really good about their chances of going further than people expect.
That's interesting. Next tier.
All right. Teams that absolutely can make the second round, and that's it. These are second round out teams. The Houston Rockets, the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Portland Trailblazers, the Phoenix Suns, and the Orlando Magic.
I'm immediately rejecting the Blazers. Any playing team in the West, I'm just rejecting because you have to play OKC or San Antonio in the first round.
Yeah, you're really sold on like San Antonio being bulletproof here.
I'm not bulletproof, but not losing to the Blazers.
What if Denver gets the 2? What if Denver gets the 2 and they're injured? Or
how does an injured Denver team get the 2 seed?
If the injuries come really late, you know?
So, yeah.
And here's the other thing is like Houston's still there, man. Like Houston's right there. Houston can absolutely get a 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Houston's ceiling is low.
Yeah.
Like if it's Portland, Houston, are you going to be like absolutely the Rockets are winning the series in a 2-7?
So give me the pro Blazers. Like why the Blazers here out of any of the other Western Conference playing teams?
Making me do this is irritating, Wes. Because I really don't think they're good. I really don't. And so it's like, why do you have them here? And it's like, look, the model is really tough, scrappy team that can surprise you, along with like a little bit of Denny Avdia just grifts his way into a million free throws because it does happen in the playoffs. People think that it doesn't. It doesn't. Like the difference is, yes, fewer calls are made, but more fouls occur. So it balances out. You're just going to play more physical, so you're going to foul more. So the free throw rates don't actually change dramatically. They are a turnover heavy team, so that's bad. If you want to go the possession route, that's okay. But they are 11th in free throw rate offensively and second in offensive rebound rate. If it is just as simple as they get, and there's so many unknowns on their roster where it's like, what's this guy going to look like? What's this guy going to look like? What if Scoot Henderson makes a little bit of a jump? What if this guy gets here? Like all these type of things. They've got a lot of versatility. They can throw out a lot of lineups. I think Tiago Splitter is actually a really good coach.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there's a possibility for them to, if they get the right matchup, for them to sneak out of the play-in tournament, upset a team and make the second round. I think they are more dangerous than a lot of the teams that are going to be in the play-in tournament in the Western Conference.
I'm concerned about their level of shooting.
Sure.
I think teams are going to pack the paint on Denny and just take a lot of that kind of stuff away. If clean up some of the turnovers as your opponent, does Portland get out in transition as much as they typically do? I don't know. I'm having a hard time seeing it, but that's enough Blazers talk. I think the more interesting team here is Houston, and specifically because they're this low. I think all of us are a little bit low on the Rockets right now. I think even the Rockets are a little bit low on the Rockets right now. Why here instead of higher?
Basically, it comes down to this. Offensive rating treats offensive rebounds as part of the same possession. So if you don't score on the first shot and you get the rebound and you put it back up, then it's one possession. But all of the actual play type data suggests like, okay, how good are you actually every time that you have the ball? How good are you? And the answer is the Rockets are not good. They are bottom 10 in half court offense. They can't score. There are a lot of mechanisms that you can take to kind of limit what KD can do in a playoff series. And we've seen them over and over and over again. And he's also, I think, just had bad shooting performances for whatever reason. I don't even necessarily know if it's like I don't think he's a playoff dropper. I just think he's missed shots. But I do think that this team does not have the combination of guys that have chemistry and synergy to make it work. Losing Adams was crippling for them because it took away rim protection and offensive rebounding. So you've lost two huge elements. You're trying to be an elite defense and they're sliding there and they're losing rim protection and his versatility and knowledge as a backside defender. And now you're relying more on Şengün, and that's bad. Also, you're losing the offensive rebound advantage. So your two big lineups are dead. That was a huge advantage for them to throw that wrench. If Van Vliet comes back at like 70%, which is unlikely to me, then sure, we can upgrade them and maybe they're able to make a run. Maybe Van Vliet just does make that big of a difference in having a floor general who can shoot out there. But every Rockets fan will tell you they're going to park a big on Amin Thompson and they're going to crash the paint. And there's very little ways that Ime Udoka has found to counter those mechanisms. Udoka he does not trust two of his three best players. The two of the three best players on the Rockets this season have been Alperen Şengün and Reed Shepherd. Just have been. He doesn't trust either one of them. And so when you have that kind of tension, I do not believe in your ability to make it more than one round.
Yeah, this team stinks in the half-court offense. They can't score. And to your point, you go from top end elite of the most elite offensive rebounding to even, and you drop that off to good, maybe even very good. That's a big drop off. You go from having this massive advantage night to night where you just knew you were going to carve out 10 extra possessions that you had no business having because of your offensive rebounding. When you marginalize that becomes a really big issue for your team, especially if you're this bad in half court. But in any statistical category, if you go from one place to another. So, I think that the Steven Adams injury, maybe some Rockets fans will be like, really, Steven Adams, is that big of a deal for us to not be title contenders anymore? It's that combined with the Fred VanVleet thing. I think it's one injury too many. It's two guys who just did something that were super important to your team that you don't have anymore. And I think we're also, even before those injuries, but especially after the Steven Adams injury, we're starting to see the limits of what this roster is, to your point, Matt. Like, there's just not a lot of floor spacing. It's very Kevin Durant heavy, and they were sort of designed that way to be basically, hey, we don't really have a great half-court offense, but now we have Kevin Durant, so maybe we will. And it hasn't exactly worked out. So
of the non outside of Houston of this group, of the 6 teams in this group, the other 5, Miami, the Lakers, the Blazers, the Suns, and Orlando. What's the team that you're most confident can make a conference finals?
A conference finals. Maybe the outside of Houston, you said?
Yeah.
I would just say the Lakers, I guess, and I don't even say it with a ton of confidence or enthusiasm, because I can't help but think, like, those first 10 games of the season where the Lakers looked great and defensively there was so much effort on that end, was that almost enough proof of concept for Luka and LeBron to look at each other and be like, all right, cool, let's go back to not playing defense for 70 games and knowing that we can maybe turn it on in the playoffs? And that's the only reason I say it. Again, not with a whole lot of gumption.
What's the second round matchup that they want that's going to make them feel good? Yeah.
Like getting a team like Houston or something like that in the second round, maybe a team that they feel like they could just outscore.
Right. So it's like, I'm trying to think of like how the matchups would work. They'd have to fall into the play-in tournament and then get them in like a 2-3, upsetting San Antonio, or
no. Right now it would be they could beat Denver in the first round and then play if Houston beats Minnesota.
Yeah, there you go. So it's like like that's what you're talking about. It's difficult, man, because like if you throw the Lakers up against OKC or I think San Antonio actually is pretty good in that matchup, even though I've listed my questions about San Antonio. Denver's an interesting one because JJ Redick has thrown the kitchen sink at Denver twice and managed to land knockout blows to get wins when they've had like full complement. We want to win this game. I tend to think, because they were still injured in that last game, I tend to think Denver will have enough, but that one's a little interesting. It's a little interesting just because the Lakers offense is so red hot. Like that would be an electric series with Luka and Jokic.
Yeah. When you don't have a great large perimeter defender, it gets hard to stop Luka when Luka's at his best. Luka has to get back healthy, and we'll see. But that's really the big issue there. Who's in your next tier?
Number 5. They can make the playoffs. That's it. They absolutely can get the playoffs, but that's as far as they're going. It's just Toronto and the Clippers. The Clippers, it seems weird because they just traded everybody, right? They pivoted to the future. But look, they got good players back. They got Darius Garland and Bennedict Mathurin. Those are 2 good players. They can make a run. Like they could absolutely get out of the play-in tournament and then make a first-round series and, play San Antonio tough. Kawhi back in San Antonio, go 6 games. Spurs win. I could see that happening. Toronto, I just think...
my only note on the Clippers is they've basically secured, at worst, the 10th seed in the West, which means a play-in appearance because the rest of the West is actively trying not to win games. So
Yep.
they pretty much secured that. So they're a play-in team at the very worst. They are a play-in team at the very best too. It just depends on what seed they get in the play-in tournament. And Kawhi is that good that they could definitely win 1 or 2 play-in games and make it to the playoffs.
And then the Raptors are just like, I don't know who I'm gonna be like, man, I really like the Raptors. And there might be a matchup that I'm gonna be like, oh, I really like that matchup for them. But Raptors defense is pretty good. Offense is spotty. They've got tough shot makers. If you subscribe to in the playoffs, you want tough bucket getters, then they're really good because they got Brandon Ingram and he's going to be able to make some buckets. But I just, if it's Toronto in a 6-3 versus Boston, I think Boston probably clocks them. If it's the Raptors in a 4-5 versus Cleveland, I think Cleveland has too much firepower. So if they're in the play-in tournament and it's the Knicks, I don't think they've got enough on either side. I just have a really hard time being able to Scotty Barnes has been so good this year. He has been awesome and he's their best player, but Brandon's going to have the ball the most. And if you're telling me that the guy with the ball the most is Brandon Ingram, I'm going to kind of be like, okay, cool. Come back to me when you're serious.
I really like watching this Toronto Raptors team. And I think
They're
one of
fun.
the reasons why is because it feels like they play up to their ceiling almost every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is a team that's really maximizing what it is. And
I have worries about Darko and he's done a really good job.
He's done an awesome job. And I think he should garner some Coach of the Year votes. I think he's done a tremendous job with the pieces that he has. As much as I've enjoyed watching this Toronto Raptors team, I don't disagree with you at all here. Because look, you could say they're 2 games out of the 3 seed in the East. Okay. Still means you just have home court advantage against the Knicks or the Cavs. I still think those teams are better.
Yeah.
If you fall, then that's a different story, right? But I don't necessarily see this team falling. Maybe to 6 or something. I don't see them falling into the play-in tournament. But
I mean, they're only 2 up on Orlando, though.
Yeah, I think again, Toronto is just so consistent that in a way that Orlando and Miami and Atlanta aren't. That I don't see them falling into the play. Like they can get hurt, obviously, but outside of something like that.
I mean, so I look at,
but I guess just to finish my point there, though, but because they are basically playing to their ceiling every single night, this feels like a regular season wins team.
Yeah,
that doesn't necessarily have that extra gear in the playoffs that we always say it takes.
A little bit of a concern. They're 16-12 at home. That's not a great number. You kind of want to be a little bit more higher than that if you want to be like Orlando's 17-8 at home. That's a really good number with 16 games left to play there at home.
Yep. Next tier.
Play-in. Congratulations, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and of course the Chicago Bulls. Hooray for all these teams.
I have no real notes on this other than at least Chicago gave me a reason to watch for another week or 2.
Yep.
I'm interested in this. How many guards are we going to play at once?
Man, I love watching Colin Sexton. That dude, first game that I think it was second game that he played in was versus Denver. And like they're starting to lose it, right? The team's getting away from them and they're getting frustrated with Jokic just like bodying them. And Bull comes over and puts his arms around all these kids like Splinter and is like, hey, keep it together. Keep it together. We're fine. Let's stick with the game plan. And just like he's a floor general. I never thought Colin Sexton would be. I love it when these stories turn out like this. When you got a guy who in Cleveland was like, I'm going to be a superstar. And then Cleveland's like, yeah, no, you're going to Utah. And then he's in Utah and he's like, oh God, for years. And then he gets sent to Charlotte and is like, okay, I can actually contribute here. And is good for them. And then he gets shipped out because they want to go with Kobe White for some reason. And he lands in Chicago, clearly not going to make the playoffs, or not going to do anything in the playoffs that they do. Like clearly just like a random roster in the middle of a bunch of transition. It's a mess. And he's still being the adult in the room. I love that for them.
You are preaching to the choir. The Bulls traded away one of my favorite guards to watch in the league, and Ayo Dosunmu, and they got one also in another deal to get Colin Sexton there. There's a little bit of Patrick Beverley to his game where I'm sometimes like, you're doing a lot and saying a lot, and there's a lot of brashness to your game. I'm not really sure how impactful it is, but I'm as just somebody who casually watches the Chicago Bulls, I'm here for it. They and Milwaukee, because where you have them in the play-in tier, and that's it. And I understand why they're here. I am watching them as potential tanking candidates, though, because both of them have an incentive to tank. Obviously, we've talked about the Milwaukee thing enough. Like with Giannis, do you tank? Blah, blah, blah. They're obviously a secret tanking team. Chicago is this real sneaky potential tanking team because everything we've heard from that front office over the years is we don't tank. We're very fine basically being in the middle. It's okay. But then you have this crazy trade deadline where they switch out all these guys, and they've now lost 5 games in a row. They are a game out of the play-in mix. So they're very capable of making it back into the play-in tournament.
Yep.
But I've got my eye on them of, you've always kind of said that you were going to do one thing and you ended up doing something different. You did something different at the deadline than you usually do in terms of basically overhauling the roster. You have your own pick this year. You also have a Portland pick that's top 14 protected. Are you going to sneakily tank this season away? I just got my eye on them. That's all.
How do you tank?
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're 2-8, but they've also played some. Like they played Raptors and then Nuggets, and then I'm trying to remember who they played last, but like played some pretty good teams. Mm-hmm. The other thing here is
Josh Giddey just takes a while to get back. Like Jalen Smith.
So there was actually a lot of that stuff before the deadline. Is like everybody was like, yeah, this is gonna be longer on Giddey than everyone's talking about. The team's saying. The other thing, though, I just think is Billy Donovan doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. And if you give Billy Donovan enough time, there's just like a huge gap between how casual fans look at Billy Donovan and how people in the league look at Billy Donovan. I'm going to bet you the last month of the season, people are going to be like, he's been pretty good.
Very possible.
Bulls are playing top 5 defense the last X amount of games. He just figures stuff out.
One more tier here, right?
Yeah. And it's just tanking with no regard. Sacramento, New Orleans, despite not having a pick. Dallas, I put New Orleans again. Memphis, the Wizards, the Nets, and then the Pacers, and obviously the Jazz.
So what's interesting here now is this battle for bottom 3 in your tank race.
Is it interesting?
It's not very interesting. I guess it's interesting for the sake of the draft.
This is like you think the All-Star is interesting. That's how this is interesting.
Right. In that I actually don't, but I feel the need to talk about it.
Sad. Can I divert the conversation?
Please.
In the last 30 years, one player has made all NBA as a top 6 selection, and the team won the title in that same season. It's Jason Tatum. People are like, Jaylen Brown. No, he was all NBA in 2023, not 24. Which is weird because I think 24 was his best season. And if you say this, I get flooded with comments about all of the NBA because it is unquestionable that top picks become all NBA players. Like that's where the talent is. If you draft in the top 8 of the NBA draft, you are going to wind up with players who in time will become all NBA or MVP or both, obviously both all NBA, MVP, maybe even MVP level players. But they won't necessarily be that for you. They might not work out and you give up on them and then they blossom. You make a trade because you talk yourself into going all in for a superstar and they blossom. That guy, your organization is a mess. And the guy's like, I don't want to be here and mess with this anymore. And he gets traded. Like all of these things happen pretty routinely. You're going to draft talent. You're absolutely going to draft the best talent. These guys consistently are it's not spread out. It's the Jokic's and Jimmy Butlers of the world are extreme outliers amidst the distribution of talent across the NBA draft. But it's not necessarily with the team that drafts them that they have that kind of success. You can make a conference finals with them. That rate is very high, right? Winning the championship is hard. There's only 30 guys, right? But I just think that all of this, the misery that you're subjecting yourself to, the impact on your culture, all of these things, so that you can turn over your keys to your multi-billion-dollar organization to an 18-year-old at 40. The problem is that I'm 43, and every year I get older, this gets more insane to me. At 30, I was like, he's the most talented guy. Why not? Like 25, I'm like, so? He could do it. He's got a good head on his shoulders, as if I knew what that meant. At 43, I'm like, I don't trust an 18-year-old to go to the corner for me. No. Why are you in charge of an organization? Why are you leading a team? This is insane. And you have no idea what they're going to be. You have no idea what their career is going to be like. You don't know if they have the right people around them. I'm not saying you should just disregard the draft. I'm not. I'm just saying we're doing a lot here and poisoning the game in order for you to give the keys to your multi-billion-dollar organization to an 18-year-old you hope has a good head on his shoulders.
Look, as somebody who is around the Miami Heat quite a bit, you're not going to find much pushback from me on the. But you're right. Like, there's been a lot of studies done, a lot of research done on the actual effectiveness of tanking, and it's not that effective. You can even look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, which a lot of people, for some reason, will point to why tanking works. They traded for their best player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You take SJA off that team, and sure, you've got Chet Holmgren, you've got Jalen Williams. Is that team winning a championship? Absolutely not. It's not even close.
Right.
And so there are obviously instances of getting the top pick working, to your point, but generally speaking, it's not this wholesale, surefire way to not only win a championship, but even compete for one, right? And so I think I say this all the time for general managers. The number one job is keeping your job. The number two job is making your team better. And I think in a weird way, we talk about the draft being this incentive for teams to tank, and that the draft is inherently incentivizes teams to be bad and all these things, as if no other league in the world, by the way, has it drafts in its sport with the worst teams getting the best picks. It's like only an NBA problem for some reason. But really, the incentive in the NBA right now is that if you sell to your owner, hey, just live with this for 2 or 3 years, and then we're going to come out the other side with a bunch of homegrown young talent that everybody's going to love and is going to sell out home games and season tickets, all this stuff, you keep your job as a general manager. And the NBA as an ecosystem has just sort of signed off on, yeah, we're okay with that. And on one hand, maybe it's good for owners to show a little bit more patience with their team builds and things like that. I do think that that's probably a good thing in the grand scheme of things, but at the same time, I think it's more it's very much a cultural thing as much as it is a systematic thing. Again, the NBA is not the only sport who has its worst teams get its best picks, right? But it seems to be the only sport that has this crazy tanking issue, and I think that has a lot to do with the culture of the sport in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's rationalized because one player makes so much of a difference in a 5-man sport rather than 11 outside of quarterback. But
you need that quarterback in the NFL, and most of the quarterbacks get taken in the top 10.
And you also just see you're not seeing teams be like, we're gonna we're up 3, and I'm putting in all of my backups, and I'm running a double reverse
because there's a cultural thing in the NFL which is so militaristic, and I'm going to go down with the ship. I'm in the bunk. I'm in the foxhole with my troops.
We're going to compete. That's it.
No matter what, we're men, and this is what we do. And it's silly in a lot of ways for both sports and whatever. But I'm just all I'm doing is pointing it out.
Like this is what we were talking about this today on Locked On NBA, and we were kind of arguing about it. And this is why I was surprised, because you and Hayes were kind of on the other side of me, and I'm just like, we need games where 2 teams are competing. Every game in the NBA should be 2 teams competing to win. Mm-hmm. This is a professional sport. The number 1 objective is to make money. The number 2 objective is to win. And I get it. I understand you need to lose for the long-term health because you want to win championships and not regular season games. I'm not saying that the Jazz should be out here playing Lauri Markkanen in 48 minutes. That would be stupid. Shut him down. Be done. Develop your young guys. Play your young guys the entire game. But once the ball goes up, once tip-off happens, both sides are playing to win. You're not being like, oh, man, we're up 5 with 4:30 to go. I'm getting Keontae Georgia. You can't do this. Mm-hmm. Like, we have to have some base level of competitiveness in professional sports. I'm so sick of being told, but the fans get to watch the superstars. You get to watch them at All-Star. That's what you get to watch. If you want non-competitive basketball with entertainment value, go watch the All-Star game. This is a professional sports league's regular season. Play to win.
The NBA has a issue with excusing non-competitiveness in various different ways.
Way to put it.
Tanking, resting the regular season so long. Oh, this team didn't try. Well, it's an 82 game regular season. Do you really expect them to try every night? Yes. Yeah, I do. A lot of these players are getting paid multiple millions of dollars per game. I expect that guy to try.
And if they tell you they simply can't, if they're like, I want to, I simply cannot, my body will not allow me to, it's time to talk about the schedule.
Correct. Absolutely. NBA tiers, always a good one, Matt. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Thanks, man.